NFL free agency winners and losers coming at you here on Chat Sports. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss a thing. Mitchell Renz, and also joined by a new guy, Chase Sr. Go ahead and hit him up on Twitter. He's at Chase_Senior. The first team that we're going to bring up here as a free agency winner, it's the Washington football team. I think they've done a phenomenal job this offseason, really filling their big needs with solid players. So Washington got the top quarterback on the free agency market, not named Dak Prescott. They were able to bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick on a one-year deal worth $10 million after a season where he was actually top 5 in QBR. Then you were able to franchise tag Brandon Scherff for the second season. And maybe one of my favorite signings, Chase, the signing of William Jackson to a 3 years, $42 million deal. They're in the NFC East, which I know you know very closely. This is the team that I actually think is going to win the division this upcoming year.
I agree with you, actually. I love the future prospects of the Washington football team. Yeah, sometimes I don't always agree with you. No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, getting back to the Washington football team, like, under Dan Snyder, they've been an awfully run organization.
Facts.
But I actually think they've gotten some critical things right over the last couple of years.
Yep.
One, they've spent a bunch of draft capital on the defensive line, and I think that's where you win, and that's where you start your rebuilding process. They have studs all across that defensive line. Also, I think Ron Rivera has proved to be an excellent head coaching hire for Washington because he was able to go in there in year one. They got off to a slow start, but he established and built a culture. And when Alex Smith came in, they won like 5 straight games. And if he didn't get injured, I think Washington's playoff prospects could have been a little bit better. And then with Taylor Heineke and Alex Smith out, Taylor Heineke goes blow for blow with the Tampa Bay Bucs, a team that went on to win the Super Bowl. So Washington didn't really need to load up on a bunch of players in free agency. I do want to hear that, but let me finish my point real quick. It's like we're on first take here. They didn't need a bunch of players. William Jackson, a really good signing at the back end. After that, great defensive line, but what they needed was a quarterback, man, and I wanted them to be in the market for one of the marquee players who could have been available at that position, and they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick to a one-year, $10 million deal. He's going to be able to give them some consistency, but he's up and down, and he's pretty erratic. How many times have we seen Ryan Fitzpatrick throw for like 400, 500 yards, and then the next game he's throwing 5 picks, right? So, It's better than their quarterback situation was last year, but I love Washington football team moving forward. Now get to your interesting
So over the last 3 years, they were 11-5 with Alex Smith, with the other teams, or the other quarterbacks that started 6-27. So 11-5 with Smith, 6-27 without him. I do think what he did was great. I am curious, though. Sam says great fact. Screw you, Sam. Let's go to the next winner here on our NFL free agency winners and losers. We got the New England Patriots, who, at the moment that I made this show, have signed 12 players so far. So obviously a lot of moves here. They spent a lot of money. When everyone was zigging, they were zagging. And what do I mean by that? Everyone was kind of sitting back waiting for moves to happen. New England said, hey, everyone, hold my beer. I'm going to go out and start bringing in some of these big-time players. They go out and get Jonnu Smith. They go out and get Hunter Henry. And when you see Bill Belichick, he really wants to be able to attack you from the inside out, and now they're going to be able to do that with 2 great tight ends. You also went out and got a guy like Matt Judon to a 4 years, $56 million deal. I know a lot of people criticize Cam Newton, him coming back with his deal up to $13.6 million. There was a few stretch of games, though, last season when Cam, he was in the MVP discussion. He didn't have any offensive help around him. Now they go out and get Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. Thought they overpaid for both of those players a little bit, but still able to have some talent around them. And then you just start building up the defense. This was the best defense in all of football in 2019. They go out and they just start bringing in name after name after name to an already talented defense. And then you top it off with Matthew Judon, 4-year, $56 million deal. I'll tell you what, really talented there. And then also before all free agency, they made a trade for Trent Brown. Was Trent Brown a nightmare with the Raiders? Yes, he was. However, he was one of the best offensive tackles in the National Football League for the Patriots. He wanted to play for New England. He was motivated to play for them, and I am ultimately curious to see how good the New England Patriots are this upcoming season.
I just love how Bill Belichick watches Tom Brady win a Super Bowl, and he says, you know what, screw it. I'm going to spend the most money I've ever spent, and I'm going to load up on a bunch of free agents, which is totally opposite of what the Patriots' way has been for 2 decades. And I know they spent a lot of money, but I don't think a single one of those contracts is outrageous. I don't think they overpaid for really anybody. We're not talking about superstar players here. What are we talking about? We are talking about perfect scheme fits and guys who love to play football. And Bill Belichick Belichick likes nothing more than guys who just love the game of football. So Patriots, they're going to be dangerous in the AFC this year, and I love what they've done in free agency.
If you love the game of football, and if you love free agency, hit that big red button that says subscribe. Join Chat Sports for all of our amazing videos here. We go live multiple times a week. If there's breaking news, we also go live. If you need videos literally every single 3 hours, we'll keep you updated on your way to work, while you're dropping a number 2, or if you're just chilling at work, we got you updated, youtube.com/chatsportstv. The next free agency winner here is the Jacksonville Jaguars, 1-15 last season. Obviously, they had a lot of holes to fill. Urban Meyer's been doing exactly that. They've signed 14 players so far, 9 on the defensive side of the football. They franchise tag Cam Robinson, which I like because obviously you need to be able to figure out a way to protect Trevor Lawrence. I know it hasn't happened yet. They're going to take Trevor Lawrence. Signed Marvin Jones, who I actually thought was a pretty solid deal for extra talent on the offensive side of the football. And then defense. You brought in Shaquille Griffin for a 3-year, $44.5 million deal, but they made a lot of moves, but that's what they needed to do, Chase.
A couple of quick points here. So I love the hire of Urban Meyer because he was a guy who was going to be able to come into a dysfunctional organization and he was going to be able to build a foundation. I think he's doing that. And they had like $70 to $80 million in cap space. They still have a lot of money left over, and we're not factoring in the fact that they're going to bring in Trevor Lawrence. So they're already surrounding him with a great football culture, which is a win, and they're surrounding him with solid players. And I think the arrow for the Jacksonville Jaguars is certainly pointing up.
Oh, dude, I'm totally with you. I'm curious to see what they do. I think really the only contract that they overpaid was Rayshon Jenkins, 4 years, 35. He's a great player, but I don't know if I would have quite paid that much either way, though. Jacksonville's a clear winner. They had money. They had some holes to fill. They filled a lot of those holes, and I'm curious to see what they do this upcoming year. The next winner here is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and what I mean by this is this is the team that won the Super Bowl, and the reason why I'm giving them as a winner, you franchise tag Chris Godwin. A lot of people are like, okay, can you bring back Chris Godwin? They ended up doing it. Okay, then they re-signed Shaq Barrett after they signed Levante David. If you would have told me they would have been able to sign Levante David, bring back Shaq Barrett, I would have said you're probably crazy. They also brought back Rob Gronkowski, and oh yeah, Tom Brady restructured his contract. This is the team that won the Super Bowl, and I think they might actually be better this year. So, I mean, that's a winner to me.
It's filthy. Think about it, too. No OTAs last year because of the coronavirus, limited training camp, no preseason games, and what does Tom Brady do in his first year with the Bucs? Leads them to an 11-5 record and a Super Bowl championship.
Yeah.
This is the Tom Brady effect. He comes in and he'll change the culture. He'll hold people accountable. But also, when people play with Tom Brady, they will take less money, and Tom Brady will take less money himself because they understand if you win games, if you win Super Bowls, you're going to get sponsors. And that's another source of revenue. So you don't have to necessarily demand the amount of money that you would if that wasn't the case if you were a perennial loser. So the Tom Brady effect here is contagious. And who would have thought, like you mentioned, that they'd be able to bring back some marquee premier players on this team like Shaq Barrett, Levante David, Rob Gronkowski, Kevin Minter, and I don't think they're done because I think Tom Brady is hitting up Leonard Fournette and he's saying, hey, come back for year 2. Antonio Brown, come back for year 2, and let's run it back again and win back-to-back rings.
So let us know here, what's the biggest free agency winner so far? If there's a team that we missed, let us know. I'll also throw this team in there because they actually just made some moves while we were live. The Arizona Cardinals, they went out and signed J.J. Watt. You went out and got A.J. Green. You made a trade for Rodney Hudson, really helping build around Kyler Murray. That's another team that I think some people are going to throw in there. I've seen some people might say the Houston Texans because of the amount of signings they made. I'm going to respectfully disagree. It was a bunch of C signings. So go down in the comments section. Let us know. Biggest free agency winner so far. The next loser here is the Atlanta Falcons, who, sure, they traded for Lee Smith, but that's literally all they did. They haven't upgraded their offensive line or defense really whatsoever. You were able to get Dante Fowler to take a little bit of a restructure, which is great and all. Alec Mack, he's signed with the San Francisco 49ers. When we originally made this video, he didn't actually sign yet. But Atlanta here, 4-12, they need to get better. They're a loser to me.
Weird team, because if you examine their roster, you'll see star power and former first-round picks all over the place. I mean, the roster is littered with first-round picks, and you're like, oh my gosh, the Atlanta Falcons should be really good. This is a team that in recent years has blown a lot of leads. A lot of that is because of incompetent coaching, and if they get some quality coaching, I actually think the Falcons can make a little bit of a leap. I actually didn't think that they had a bunch of glaring holes on their roster, but I did expect them to make some moves, and they haven't at all. I will say this, though. The salary cap is down. The market for certain positions has been down, especially at the wide receiver position. For a first-year coach and a first-year GM to take a wait-and-see approach, I think it's actually kind of smart, and I think that's the play that Atlanta is going with right now.
So is Atlanta the biggest loser in free agency? Possibly. They're definitely made our list here. But if you disagree with us, it's all good. That's what Chat Sports is all about. I want you to go down in the comments section right now. We'll be looking who's been the biggest free agency loser so far. If you don't do anything, does that make you a loser? Well, it's going to make you a loser in my book. The Eagles literally have not done a single thing here. Current cap space of minus $4.85 million, which is 30th most, which is probably the biggest reason why they haven't gone out and made any signings. You traded away Carson Wentz. Your only quarterback on your roster is Jalen Hurts, which I've said this multiple times. That's just an absolute disaster here. So, Chase, what do you think of Jalen Hurts? Are the Philadelphia Eagles a loser, or am I just overreacting?
So the Eagles have had a ton of work to do, not when it comes to building their roster. They were $40 million in red, so they had to clear a bunch of cap space
Correct.
Prior to this afternoon. So they didn't have any money to spend. That's why they've been silent in free agency. I will say that I think the best move for the Eagles, go ahead with Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. I thought he flashed in the minimum time that he got last year. I think he gives you a little bit of a dynamic feel at the quarterback position with his opportunity and ability to pass and throw. I think there's a dynamic element there. So I'd keep him as a starting quarterback, give him the full season to see what he can do. Then at number 6, I'm taking Jamar Chase, or I'm taking Devontae Smith, giving him another weapon, which then allows your first-round pick from last year, Jalen Reagor, to slide back into his natural position of slot, and I think that gives you some offensive weapons. But yes, Philly's been silent, but that's because they have no money, which is why the Eagles are in the position that they're in.
Maybe the biggest loser here, it's the Chicago Bears, who, sure, you signed Andy Dalton, but your plan A was Russell Wilson. And I don't know if anybody out there has ever had plan B, but I think it looks a lot like Andy Dalton here. So, you're minus $964K, 29th most in the National Football League. If your biggest thing going forward was, okay, we want to be able to franchise tag Allen Robinson, that's great. But you didn't extend him long term. He's already unhappy. And now you're what? You're going to battle it out with Nick Foles and Andy Dalton? That's why they're a big loser here. This is an extremely talented football team on the defensive side of the football. But besides that, man, it is a really frustrating team to watch.
The opportunity for Chicago to win is right now. The only thing that they are really missing, maybe with the exception of a good GM, because I don't like Ryan Pace,
or head coach,
is a quarterback. And
Facts.
This is why you can't be happy with what Ryan Pace is doing right now. How are you all in on Russell Wilson, willing to just mortgage the farm? And that is your plan A, but then you have no plan B. And your plan B is to sign Andy Dalton. The only positive about that is the good color scheme between his hair and the Chicago Bears uniforms and that slight hint of orange. But the Bears aren't in on a guy like Sam Darnold. They're not in on some of these secondary quarterbacks. What about Deshaun Watson? You go with Andy Dalton, and it's a contract where he can earn up to $13 million. This is why the Bears are on the free agency loser list, and this is why the Bears fans are depressed right now.
So what do y'all think about this? Which player has been the biggest free agency loser thus far? So we did a lot of teams here. What I wanted to know, though, is who do you think's been the biggest loser in terms of a player? Obviously, there's a lot of different ways that we could go with this initially. However, there are some changes that could be made. So go down in the comments. Which player has been the biggest free agency loser so far?